Bitcoin news. IMF demands Pakistan to impose capital gains tax on Bitcoin and crypto investment to receive a $3 billion aid package. The IMF, the strong arm, the banking wing of the American mafia. And then you wrote, the IMF is scared shitless of Bitcoin.
Expand but I used a poop emoji, though.
You did. Scared?
I thought that was very restrained of me.
It was.
Not to use a curse word. I used poop emoji dash less.
Nice work.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, I'm sensitive to people out there that might be offended by all these expletives that are not deleted. You know, everyone. Anyway, the IMF, is a central bank. Right, the International Monetary Fund. It's like a central bank. It's like the World Bank. It's like other central banks, like the Federal Reserve Bank, ECB, Bank of Tokyo, Bank of Japan. Right. It's a central bank. It's a large centralized bank. Right. And they print fiat money. Right. In the IMF, they create something called the STD, which is not a sexually transmitted disease. Wait a minute, I got this mixed up. What do they print? They don't print STDs.
SDT?
What is the IMF's fiat money? It's the I forget what it is. It's look it up.
Something bond.
IMF money, IMF fiat money. And so they have their own fake money, fiat money. And so they like to print it up and dictate to folks what they should be doing. And they'll give them lots of this of fake money that they keep printing, and of course, purchasing power of that fake money continues to go down. But people are stupid enough to take that stupid money because they think only in terms of the next 5 SDR, special drawing rights.
Yes.
Special drawing rights, SDR. I said STD, which is kind of funny. Sexually transmitted.
They both act the same. They both have the same effect.
They both give you herpes. It's the SDR is the herpes of fiat money. And STD is the gold standard of sexual diseases. It's like one big cluster fuck. And so the SDR, special drawing rights, this is what the IMF uses for influence peddling. And so, Bitcoin obviously is superior to any fiat money. It's superior to gold. It's going to demonetize everything. Everything goes to zero against Bitcoin, including the SDR. And so if you're the printing of the SDR, you're going to be like, fuck you. So they say to Pakistan, look, man, we put you in debt and you owe us interest on that debt. And we're going to cut you off and we're going to force, we're going to cause you misery unless you tell us you're not going to accept Bitcoin, or you're going to tax Bitcoin, or you're going to cut yourself off for Bitcoin. Because if you don't do that, we're going to cut you off from all of our fake money printing. And, you won't be able to buy that shawarma or whatever it is in Pakistan that they love. What do they eat in Pakistan? What's the dish? It's, is it a shawarma?
Or some of that, I think. It's sort of similar to Indian food, you know what I mean?
It's Indian food? Similar to Indian food?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
dal and curry.
Dal and curry, a lot of curry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to, you're thinking about that dal you're going to have. But, now we're telling you, you won't be having it unless you cut off from this Bitcoin. And they're like, well, whatever. So it's an extortion racket. It's a racket. They're racketeering. It's a protection racket that they are protecting their money printing oligopoly racket. And of course, they're going to be going down this path. They did this to Argentina. Before Milei took office, the IMF got Argentina to agree not to put Bitcoin as legal tender, or they wouldn't renew an IMF loan, right? They were successful in their extortion racket in Argentina. What's going on in El Salvador? Well, we haven't heard from the IMF recently. We're not sure what's cooking up. They're cooking up what their thoughts are. I know that the country has some IMF debt on the books. It's not that onerous. It's not that big.
Because they paid a bunch off.
They paid a bunch off. Yeah, right. The country is paying down debt, right? So the debt to equity ratio is actually improving quite substantially because the growth, the debt to GDP is improving because GDP has gone from 28 to 35 billion just in the last few years, and the debt is being paid down. So that debt to GDP ratio is improving. So, and that's without the IMF. So the IMF, I don't think at this point in El Salvador, and I would have no specialized knowledge about this. I have no insight into this other than my opinion as an outsider. And my outside opinion is that the IMF does not have the ability to impose their will onto El Salvador when it comes to Bitcoin. That is my opinion on this. And based on the 450 million that was just put into the country's Bitcoin wallet in cold storage, clearly the country is doing well and growing. And this is without IMF interference. And the IMF is a country, is an institution that without, for example, the 2008 financial crisis that they helped engineer, they would have gone out of business. But, you know, IMF, Goldman Sachs, ECB, the European Central Bank, engineered Greece and Ireland collapse in 2008. And that's been documented, and that's easy to document, that's easy to prove. For example, Goldman Sachs did the following, you know, Greece, to be included in the euro, which they were launching approximately in that era, had to have a certain debt to GDP ratio, let's call it, and they were not qualified to be part of the euro because they had too much debt. Goldman Sachs simply came in and cooked the books for Greece, the sovereign state of Greece, to make it appear as though they had more equity and less debt than they actually have. And they did this on 2 separate occasions. It's been well documented. No one disputes this. And to allow Greece to enter the euro, wherein once inside, they quickly collapsed because they were not financially really in a position to take on the responsibility of the euro. And guess who was making a massive bet against Greece, who profited from the credit default swaps betting against Greece? Oh, it was Goldman Sachs. So Goldman Sachs gets a fee to cook the books to get them in. Then Goldman Sachs makes these massive bets against them that they'll fail once they're in. And the former president or premier or whatever they have there was also implicated in this racketeering that went on. I'm not sure what the status is at this time, whether that was ever resolved, but it didn't look good at the time. And so this is also in Ireland. They also went through a similar situation where the leadership in Ireland, surprisingly, it might be the most corrupt country in the EU. A lot of people don't associate Ireland with political corruption on that scale, but it is incredibly corrupt. And in 2008, the curtain was pulled back, and we saw really the players in Ireland. And I made a comment at the time that RTE, which is the state broadcaster, which is similar to the BBC, but in Ireland, I said the biggest threat for Ireland is the RTE, because they are clearly propagandists for the worst charlatans in the banking sector and political corruption in Europe. And a lot of people quoted me on that, and they're like, you know, this Max is actually right. The RTE is hellacious. And but of course, there's a huge portion of the population that benefits from the corruption, and they would in the media in particular, it has the worst media in the world is in Ireland. It's horrible. Concentrated and toward centralization of certain folks that are the ruling folks in the country. But across the board, though, in Europe, it's kind of a mess. I could do a whole different show on that. But the point being that the IMF is in the business of creating problems that they solve by printing more money. It's similar to the pharmaceutical industry that will create diseases, right, to that sell you the drugs to cure the diseases that they create, or the banking industry will create financial problems, and that, oh, we have a solution here with our derivative product. Oh, this pension account in Alabama, you're out of money thanks to the fact that we sold you a lot of garbage. Well, we have a derivative product to help you solve the garbage of your pension account. By the way, we just lost half your pension money again. Like Matt Taibbi has written extensively about this, right? So it's just the same mentality. It's just pernicious, cancerous, institutionalized fraud in every sector of the economy, every class of professional.
I mean, speaking of movies, it's like that in the Goodfellas, where they take over the restaurant. The whole goal of it is to firebomb it and collect the insurance money. They like, we run the products in the front door, steal them out the back, then the guy's bankrupt, and then we set it on fire and make money. Like that's how the mob works.
100%.
Only these guys wear three-piece suits and they're considered upstanding citizens, and the mob is considered criminals.
Right. In this case, the insurance money is in the form of a CDS or a credit default swap, which allows you to make a bet against on something collapsing. So that's just Greece. What the CDS bets against Greece were extraordinarily high because the people making those bets were the ones who were the arsonists who are creating the collapse. And we see this over and over again. That people say, well, the financial crimes are victimless crimes.
Oh God, no.
But that's completely false, of course, because when you bankrupt a country, it causes a lot of hardship and a lot of agony. It's slow moving. The deaths of despair, and these things could take years to develop.
Yeah, but you're right. There is. I mean, look at America. I mean, the suicide rate, the opioid epidemic. All of these, addictions and isms you can tie a lot of them. There's a lot of contributing factors to these things, yep. but every time there's a big financial crisis, the death rate goes up because people are stressed out. They're whatever, they check out, they do drugs, they commit suicide. You could draw a direct line to these financial crimes to the deaths of people. There's no two ways about it. I mean, 6 million foreclosures happened in America as a result of the 2008 crisis. That's not 6 million people. That's 6 million families.
Right.
So you're probably talking somewhere in the neighborhood of 20-some million people were affected.
At this event, or any event that I go to, that we go, Max and Stacy go to, the preponderance of people who know our work know us from 2008. When that hit and they were looking for answers.
That's how I know you.
They found us, yeah.
I don't know you because of watching you because of Bitcoin. I know you because I was one of the people who lost my home.
Right.
In 2000, I lost it in 2010, but it was a part of the 2008 crash. And I was in a 16-month battle with the banks. They lied to me and said, well, we're going to cut your mortgage payment in half. Here's a forbearance. It's a 3-month. After the end of the 3 months, we'll restructure your loan. At the end of the 3 months, they went, you don't qualify for the restructure. Oh, and now you're 3 months behind because you've only been making half payments. They did that to me and millions of other people. So I was furious. And when I heard you speak about the financial crisis, I was like, this guy knows it. You were in it. You know how these corrupt assholes work. And that was the door opening. I didn't even know what Bitcoin was at that point. But when I started to realize Bitcoin, I connected the two and went, this is a solution to this systemic, institutionalized corruption that screws over average people.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was like a lot of people know me or would say that I scream a lot or I'm very animated. And this is because in that 2008 period, what I felt like I could do was to channel the anger of the people who were being victimized and to let them know that their anger was justified and that the anger was justified and they should not in any way feel like they had done something wrong. I mean, they were the victim of a massive crime by institutional crime by these banks, and then to kind of explain what happened in those terms, right? And so, I mean, I became like especially like Greek television or Irish television, like became kind of famous in Greece and Ireland because when I was interviewed on Al Jazeera English or the BBC or these other international broadcasters and they had me on against somebody else, I would start yelling at them like they're terrorists, they're financial terrorists, because there's some Greek academics saying that, well, the banks were over leveraged and they needed to restructure. And just going down to the laundry list of gobbledygook you might read in the Financial Times, which is all just obfuscating to words to hide criminal activity. And I would simply deconstruct it live on the air and say, and you just said this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. It's because you're a terrorist. You're a terrorist. You're no different than Osama bin Laden. You just killed those people, right? And they're like, what the hell are you talking about? And the host is like, wow, this is interesting. We'll have this guy back on. So this is how I became kind of the screaming crazy man on TV, because in the financial news, everyone hides behind the obfuscation of jargon that nobody questions. Nobody who interviews a financial professional on TV knows how to ask them a question. Right. They simply nod their head and they'll say, oh, well, that makes sense. But they really don't know what they're saying. And it's very easy to be completely cryptic when speaking about finance on TV, because there's like 5 layers deep before you actually get to what you're actually trying to talk about, you know.